In 2017, a 21-year-old kid from Long Island posted an Instagram caption that read, "When I die, you'll love me." He wasn't being dramatic. He was being prophetic. Because Gustav Åhr, the kid the world would come to know as Lil Peep, had already figured something out that most artists spend their entire careers running from. That the most honest thing you can do is make your pain into something beautiful and then hand it to strangers. The problem is, he never figured out how to stop. This is not a story about addiction. It's not a cautionary tale. It's a story about a kid who built a cathedral out of his own suffering, and what it means when the architect can no longer leave the building. Welcome to the Tortured Artists Club. Gustav Åhr grew up in Long Beach, New York, a place that is neither city nor country, the kind of suburb that produces people who feel like they don't quite belong anywhere. His parents divorced when he was young. His mother, Liza, a Harvard-educated academic, raised him and his brother largely on her own. By his own account, Gus was sensitive in a way that confused people around him, deeply emotional, easily overwhelmed, and almost compulsively drawn to music as a place to put things that had nowhere else to go. He started rapping at 15, but calling it rap undersells what it actually was. From the beginning, Peep was doing something more specific. He called it emo rap before anyone had a name for it. The result was music that sounded like a text you send at 3 a.m. to someone who's already stopped responding. What's important to understand about Peep's early work is that it wasn't polished. It wasn't supposed to be. The lo-fi quality, the bedroom production, the auto-tune that felt like a voice cracking rather than a vocal effect, was the point. It was the sound of something being made in real time by someone who needed to make it more than they needed it to be good, and his audience recognized themselves in every rough edge. By the time he was 19, Lil Peep had amassed hundreds of thousands of followers on SoundCloud, without a label, without a publicist, without almost anything except a laptop, a microphone, and an unnerving willingness to be completely unguarded in public. He spoke openly about depression, about suicidal ideation, about drugs. Not in the way rappers often invoke darkness as performance, but in the way someone talks about the weather, matter-of-factly, like it would be stranger to pretend those things weren't there. That honesty was the architecture. Everything else was just decoration. Around 2015, Peep became a central figure in a loose collective called Goth Boy Clique, a group of SoundCloud artists, producers, and visual creatives who were essentially building a new subculture in real time. GBC wasn't a label. It was closer to a philosophy that you could take the aesthetics of suburban white punk, the tattoos, the dyed hair, the studded jackets, and combine them with hip-hop cadences and trap production, and make something that neither scene had seen before. What they were really doing was giving a generation of young people who felt like outsiders a new uniform. And Peep was the face on the poster. The tattoos are worth stopping on for a moment. By the end of his life, Peep had over 100 of them, including across his face. His mother, Liza, has spoken about this in interviews, how she understood them not as self-destruction, but as self-definition. He was literally inscribing his identity onto his body, making himself into something that couldn't be unmade. There's a psychology concept called externalization, the process of taking internal states and making them visible in the world. Peep's entire career was an act of externalization. The music, the tattoos, the aesthetic, the social media presence, all of it was a continuous translation of the inner life into the outer world, which is beautiful, and which is also, in the wrong circumstances, a trap. Because when your art is indistinguishable from your pain, you need the pain to keep working. And some people start feeding it. In August of 2017, Lil Peep released Come Over When You're Sober, Part 1, the project that would prove he had moved beyond cult following into something larger. The production was cleaner than his earlier work, but the emotional core was untouched. Songs like Awful Things and The Bright Side were the kind of tracks that people describe as finding them, as if the song had been looking for the listener, not the other way around. The central theme of the album, and really of most of Peep's catalog, was the paradox of wanting to be loved and being unable to accept it. Song after song described a romantic life defined by intensity, dissolution, and return. Relationships that burned bright and ended badly. A recurring inability to let good things stay. Psychologists sometimes use the term attachment dysregulation, difficulty forming stable emotional bonds, often rooted in early relational experiences. And while we should be careful about diagnosing artists posthumously, it's hard to listen to Peep's catalog and not hear someone trying to understand why closeness feels dangerous. What's striking is how self-aware he was about it. He wasn't singing about these patterns because he was confused by them. He was singing about them because he understood them perfectly. And understanding them wasn't the same as being free of them. That gap between knowing and changing is where a lot of Peep's work lives. And it's one of the most honest things in contemporary music. Because most of us know exactly what we're doing to ourselves. We just keep doing it. By the fall of 2017, Peep was on tour. The Come Over, When You're Sober project had cracked open a mainstream lane, and there were real conversations happening about label deals, about the next album, about what the next chapter looked like. By all external accounts, things were moving. By internal accounts, from those who were there, things were more complicated. Peep had been open about his drug use for years. Xanax in particular had become both subject matter and substance in his life, something he rapped about and something he used, often together. The blurring of those two things, the art and the lived reality, had always been part of his authenticity. It was also, ultimately, what killed him. On November 15th, 2017, Lil Peep was found unresponsive on his tour bus in Tucson, Arizona. He was pronounced dead at 21 years old. The cause was an accidental overdose of fentanyl and Xanax. The grief that followed was unlike almost anything the internet had produced before. His fans, many of them young, many of them struggling, felt the loss with a ferocity that surprised even mainstream outlets covering it. This wasn't celebrity mourning. This was the grief of people who felt like someone who understood them had been taken. His mother, Liza, has spent the years since his death working tirelessly to preserve his legacy, release his music, and fight against the fentanyl crisis that contributed to his death. She describes her son as someone who wanted to help people who felt the way he did. Someone who believed that being honest about suffering was an act of service. She's right. Lil Peep has now sold more music dead than he ever did alive. Come Over When You're Sober, Part 2 was released posthumously. His catalog continues to grow. In a generation of artists, from MGK to current SoundCloud emo scenes, cite him as foundational. But I don't want to end on legacy metrics. That's not what he was about. What Lil Peep understood, what he lived and died inside of, is something that every artist eventually has to reckon with. That the wound and the work are not separate things. That making art from your pain is not the same as healing from it. That the audience can receive what you give and love you for it, and you can still go home alone with whatever you started with. He gave people something real. The question his life leaves behind is the one every tortured artist has to face. Who is the art actually for? And is there a version of making it that doesn't require you to keep the wound open? Gustav Åhr didn't get to answer that question, but the fact that he asked it, loudly, beautifully, in front of everyone, means the rest of us get to sit with it. That's what artists do. They die into their work, so the work can live. The Tortured Artists Club, where the wound and the work are the same thing.